All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started on the next section of the user group, and ways to improve document scanning in Laserfiche. Always one of our most successful and desired presentations. So without further ado, I am going to turn this over to Dan Siegel, our project manager, and he will go ahead and present on this topic.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Siegel. I'm a project manager over at Cities Digital. And today we're going to talk about some scanning strategies, your 5 best methods to improve Laserfiche scanning, as well as import agents and PhotoDocs. As we go through, it's definitely an open forum. I'm going to stop periodically for questions, so definitely feel free to stop me if you have any questions, and there also will be some time at the end for questions. So with that, we are going to go ahead and get started with our 5 ways to improve document scanning in Laserfiche. And our first one is going to be minimizing color and DPI, which stands for dots per inch. Now, the biggest mistake most people make with Laserfiche, in just even document storage in general, is just storing in color when you just don't need to. A 10-page document stored, around 300 DPI is about a megabyte. It hovers around there, maybe 0.8 megabytes. That same document in 24-bit color will actually be up to 10, 20, even 60 megabytes. So it's exponentially larger to store documents in color. And if the document is functionally equivalent in black and white than it is in color, then there's really no reason to store it in color. A lot of documents will come in, such as like flyers and pamphlets and handouts, and they'll have nice little colors, and it looks nice when you hand it out to somebody. But ultimately, a lot of people just photocopy it, store it in a folder somewhere, in a locker, or what have you. And generally speaking, if it's functionally the same in black and white, you can read everything, everything looks good, and the way that you physically store it is black and white, then a black and white scan should probably suffice for most of the time. And I'm going to kind of show you what that means when a document is functionally equivalent. So here is a great example. The document comes out and it looks nice, and it looks pretty, and you hand it out to people, and all the colors look very, very fancy. But when you're actually storing it and you want to keep it for your records, and it's exponentially smaller, all the text is still there, it's still OCRable, and it's maybe a 60th of the size, and it's what we call functionally equivalent. And that's kind of a best practice here. Now, that being said, don't just go ahead and throw away color just because you can. Be strategic about it. A great example up there is our Pac-Man chart. A black and white Pac-Man really isn't a black and white Pac-Man. I wouldn't play black and white Pac-Man. I wouldn't, So just be strategic. If a document has highlights or markup or anything like that, that's a good indication that you should probably keep the color. Just remember that when you do keep the color, it's going to add to the hassle of the document. It's going to be slower to open up. It's going to be slower if you need to add any annotations or things like that. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is grayscale and using it in particular with gray documents. Sometimes you'll use the grayscale option on your scanner, and you already have an image which is gray, where it already has explicit colors and shades of gray. And in that situation, what it can do is it can actually save you a significant amount of space, but it may kind of distort the image. So kind of be strategic about it. If you're always scanning in gray documents and maybe you do have a few that are gray, turn off the grayscale option and just kind of make sure that you're keeping things and it has good kind of looks to it. Next, we're going to talk about resolution. My resolution is to go to the gym more this year. No, resolution is really more about the image quality. On the left, you can see bad resolution. On the right, good. This is what we mean when we talk about resolution. And we're going to get pretty specific here when we talk about our resolutions and the resolution you scan your images in. For Color documents. A big thing to keep in mind was when you're selecting your resolutions is that there's going to be compression. And what is compression? Compression basically is when the computer just throws out some information on the image in the hopes that you don't notice. It's a big part of all technology. Television works with compression. It actually only sends you the differences in the image and things like that. So when you're saving as a JPEG or a PDF, automatically it's going to start compressing the file, and that's just part of modern technology. So in keeping with that, 9 times out of 10, you're not even going to notice that it's going to be compressed. But when it has been, at your lower resolutions of 150 or under, strong JPEG compression or PDF compression can actually just make your document a little bit of a bloody mess. So kind of a good rule of thumb here is for anything that includes really small font, like 8-point or smaller, keep it to 300 and above. Otherwise, 200 or 150 should more or less be sufficient. And if you ever need to check it, obviously just scan it at some of the lower resolutions and see if your OCR comes in with text or a bunch of jargon and symbols and letters, and then you'll know if you need to up the resolution or not in your color documents. Similarly, with black and white documents, 200 DPI normally is going to fit 95% of your needs. For some of your documents that are a little bit smaller, have a little bit more detail, 300 should be good. And then 600 is really, you should really reserve that for something which just has, microscopic text. You got to get your magnifying glass out to read it, and that's kind of a best practice there. So we've talked about minimizing color and DPI. Do you have any questions about that, or any questions about best practices? All right, then we're going to talk next about reducing clicks and keystrokes. So each one of these little things can save you a little bit of time, but together it cumulatively saves you a significant amount of time. Setting default names to things, default fields, using default templates. So you don't have to sit there and go through and select it each time. It can save you a significant amount of time. If you're doing 50 documents a day and they're all the same template, it takes you 20, 30 seconds to do that each time. That time adds up. You can also do the same thing with limiting pages to the document, setting the folder path, and things of that nature. Setting a default volume if you want to get that granular with it. Another nice thing to do is to use tokens to fill out your fields. So rather than doing the data entry twice, entering the name of the document, then entering all the fields, you can use a token to dynamically name a document. So as you go down and you fill out the fields in a template, that can go up and it can dynamically fill in the name of the document. And you can fill in also, you can add document or field rules or any types of little formatting to it. So if you're using a date and you only store it by the year, you only have to enter in the date once, and then you can just go to the token editor and add some formatting to the token itself. So rather than 6/9/2016, you're pulling up just 2016, for example. Next thing I want to talk about is customizing your keyboard. You can take advantage of keyboard shortcuts to really save you some time in Laserfiche. And if you're not familiar with keyboard shortcuts, you probably use them every day. The most commonly used ones are copy, paste, and print. So Control-C, Control-V, Control-P. Or if you're using a Mac, Command-C, E, and B. Now it's actually really easy to set up. It's right in the File menu. You click File and you go into the Customize Your Keyboard, and it'll bring up a whole menu to take care of that. So as you go in, you also will be able to go and select your actions by category, or if you don't know what you want to do, you can select no category and look through all of them. And then all you need to do is just go in, and where it says press your shortcut key there, record the shortcut that you want to do. It'll actually even tell you if it's mapped to something else, and then you can go make your decision. Do I want to map this here, or do I want to go to the other one and map something else to that one and map that one to this? And really, kind of optimize it for you personally, how you can get through this the scanning much quicker.
I'm going to interrupt for just a second. I just had a customer had an issue with that hotkeys, and also I want to say Dan and I shop at the same store. This is in Walnut. Not really, but coincidentally
There was a memo.
we're just we planned out our shirts. But you know, a great feature for that use of the hotkeys is resume scanning. If you ever have to scan a whole bunch of pages all at once, and your scanner doesn't have a big enough feeder for a whole bunch of pages, and then you have to go and refeed the scanner and you want to keep filling it, oh my gosh, hitting the resume button is a real pain. So if you just use a hotkey for resume, you just click hotkey and you just keep feeding the scanner, resume, you know, control R or whatever it is, control shift R or whatever. So that's a really good use for it. You'll find that your scanner operators will be clicking a whole bunch of buttons all the time. So if you sit down with them and say, well, show me your process, which one of these buttons do you think we could possibly just use a hotkey with? I'll bet you'll save a ton of time. So that's a great thing to just kind of revisit, because they didn't always have hotkeys with scanning. So again, some of the users in here who have been using Laserfiche for 14 years or 21 years, or you might not know that those are there. So good thing to revisit with your scanners.
Yeah. So another few advanced options that you can set up is that if you already know how to use the wizard, or you don't want to use the wizard, you already know some of the features that you want to set up, you can just turn off to show the wizard, and then you can just go down to select your options as you're going through some of the document scannings. You can also have the Fields tab automatically show when you open it up, just so that it saves you a little bit of time. You don't have to go navigate to the templates, select the fields, it's already there. And that kind of takes us to the end of unnecessary keystrokes. Any questions about that, or good?
Are there defaults set for the hotkeys for the splitting the document? Do all of those have a default shortcut key?
The question was, for those of you on the webinar, is there a default hotkey? And it depends. Some of them are default. Obviously, Control-C, Control-P, and V are all default. There's not always going to be necessarily a default one for splitting a document, but you can always go in and add it.
Oh, here's easy to go. Is there a way to set that globally throughout the organization through some sort of configuration file within Laserfiche? To say, okay, everyone, this is by default has split a document control.
For the hotkeys, I don't believe so, but there are certainly other ones that you can set.
So is that configuration stored for the user?
Yeah.
So that user, so in the back end of Laserfiche, they can get into the user's specific profile settings. Is it an ability in there to add a specific line about hotkeys that kind of stored back there? Or you know that kind of complexity?
I don't think that's a little too granular. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if you can store specific to each user globally, but I'm sure somewhere locally it's stored. Unfortunately, not globally within the repository. Any other questions? All right, then next we're going to talk about reducing unnecessary scanning. So I'm not going to spend too much time on Laserfiche forms. We just went through a lot of good use cases in the last presentation. But if you have a process that you can do where you no longer need to print something out, fill it out, do a digital you can now do a digital signature with Laserfiche forms. One of the great features of Laserfiche forms is that you can just send straight to the repository. If you've got like a dynamic naming convention, you can do that. And then you can also kick off your workflows to make sure they get stored and all that kind of fun stuff. So any questions on that? Otherwise, I will go ahead and move on. So next I want to talk about Snapshot, which is a feature built in when you install the client. And main question is, what is Laserfiche Snapshot? And it is a digital printing driver. So whenever you go and you look at your printers, there's going to be a little Laserfiche Snapshot in your file system there. And basically, whenever you print something, you can move it into Laserfiche with Snapshot. So a lot of people use it for maps, for emails, third-party programs, web pages, all that kind of fun stuff. And it can also work inside Laserfiche itself. If you already have some PDFs that you have in there, any DWG, old school stuff, which is a technical term, and anything like that, you can go ahead and make it readable and searchable after the fact.
And before we move on, we're going to back that off for a second. This is one of these points that I get all the time from customers. And I like to just shoot up from the back. I'm just that rude user that jumps in and starts talking. But I want to just interject on this. One of the great things about this use of Snapshot is that if you are a user that has a lot of those old files, we're making reference up here to something that only people who've had Laserfiche for 14 years or longer would know, like VisiCalc and WordStar, some of those old proprietary formats. Snapshot is a great option to be able to convert formats similar to that. Now, you have to have something like a VisiCalc, which is like 25 years old now, or 30 or more even. So it's unlikely anybody actually has that exact program anymore. But if you have something proprietary, a format of some type, if you have the actual program to open it, Snapshot will let you convert that to an image format, and then it's non-proprietary, it's in Laserfiche, it's fully text searchable. So a good point for this is like report files. We have a lot of folks that have some sort of proprietary report file that's generated. You can print that directly to Laserfiche as an image file, and then the OCR runs on it. It's fully text searchable. You don't need the old program anymore. But if you got the old floppies, which still every year or so, you know, I'll get a customer will say, well, we're ready to convert everything to Laserfiche. What do we do with these? And you know, it's a box of those 5 1/4 floppies that they found down in the vault. And I'll get that into Laserfiche. If you have the program, and even more so, you have the disk drive to read those old formats, you can put them in Laserfiche and snapshot them in, and you know, snapshot the images in just by printing. Another great thing to just touch on that Dan was talking about is those PDFs, those caches of PDFs that you have on the network drive. When you bring them into Laserfiche via import agent, or you drag and drop them into the client, they will become searchable automatically using the Laserfiche client. But on the back end, it's using a format or a process similar to Snapshot to generate pages on the back end. But you can also have documents that are in Laserfiche already, and you might put a stamp on it, you might put a redaction on it, and you want that to be what a lot of people call burned in. You want that to be essentially part of the image as opposed to a layer. You can use Snapshot to burn those annotations, burn those redactions in so it's permanent. There's nothing else that can be done with it. Snapshot's a great tool to use for that. Again, that's kind of a, you know, special situation, but great option. So I just wanted to interject.
All right, so invariably the next question begs, where can you find Snapshot? And this is an example of Microsoft Word. It's just in your regular printer here, and all you need to do is just go and click print and pulls right up. Where can you find the setup or the configuration? Now, if you have Windows 7 or older and you still have the normal Windows button where you can go into your programs and search, and you have like a list of your alphabetical programs, all you need to do is just click Laserfiche, Snapshot, and there it is. For Windows 8, 10, and any version in between that, all you need to do is just click in the little start menu thing, and then there's a, you just start typing, and you start typing Snapshot, it will come up. The last place that you can find it is actually in Laserfiche itself. When you right-click on a document, such as like a PDF, what it's going to do is it'll generate pages option there. Will create a TIFF that can be OCR'd, and basically you can do that with any document that can be opened in the native viewer on your computer. So let's talk about some common use cases for Snapshot. So one of our clients, they had their little craft time. Whenever there was a news article, they would go, they would cut it out, they post it on paper, and then take a scan of that. Now they no longer need to do that. Now they can just go straight to the news site, go to the web article, and then just print the article straight from their browser. They don't have to do arts and crafts or anything like that. It's nice and easy, and it gets right in. But if you have other things such as those proprietary formats of reports or mainframe reports or like a whole batch of invoices, it's quick and easy, and you can just go straight in from your print dialog, or you don't have to print it out, scan it back in to get it in the format that you want. The options here are flexible as well. You can choose your page size. You can also choose your resolution. We already talked about resolution. Just keep in mind that resolution, the higher you go, the larger the file size. And the longer that it'll take to open, and the more space that it's going to take up inside your volumes. Another nice feature is that you can choose the file formats that it brings files in as. You could choose as JPEG, different types of TIFF, for example, and you can also add page numbering to the tags as well. Makes life nice and easy, so you get to choose your file format. The other thing that's just really nice is that it lets you choose your image quality options. There's a whole slew here of options, and you can choose the intensity for all of them. So if you want to make your images not searchable, for example, what you could do is you could just turn the threshold up to 100%, and then you can get a little preview of what it actually looks like and what it's going to look like as you're snapshotting the documents into Laserfiche. The next big thing I want to talk about with Snapshot is that you can apply watermarks to your snapshotted images. You can adjust their brightness, their location, you can choose custom images. It's really pretty easy. You just click the print watermark and then add the watermark to this page only or to all pages. And another nice feature which you can do is you can do a unique one to the first page. So if you've got like a nice little one on the first page that is your logo, and then in the back you want it to be, you know, a nice little thing in the background of the text, you can do that. And what does it actually look like? Here's a nice little sample watermark of my face. If any of you would like to use my face as your watermark, you can find my picture online on the city's digital website. But this is what it actually looks like. It's grayed out, and you can set the intensity and the location that it goes. I dropped it in the middle of all these pages, and then it's a little hard to see, but on the left-hand side you can see that it's on every single page as well. So it makes it nice and easy. You don't have to adjust the document or change where it is. Another nice thing that you can do with Snapshot is you can do annotations. So if you just have static text, you could always put static text. Or if you have a date, rather than having to put the date in every time, or static date, you know, something, 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 this date or this time, you can do that. You can also choose the location of the annotation, where it goes, as well as even the color, and some of the other features such as transparent or opaque. And what does that look like? So here's my snapshotted image again. You know, obviously you got my face in the middle, but at the very bottom there's a little annotation. And then up on the right-hand side, it's a little zoomed-in view, just so that you can see on this example, which is just Dan's annotation, expires 6/9/2016. One more feature very similar is also Bates numbering. If you are in the legal industry and you utilize Bates numbering on your documents, you can choose docket numbers, case numbers, for example, and specific numbering schemes and anything quite like that. Any questions about watermarks, annotations, or Bates numbering? Okay. So one of the nice features about Snapshot is you can also save different profiles. So if you have a particular thing that you need to do, or it's a file type when you're printing your contracts, you want your contracts to have your watermarks and you have your numbering and all that fun stuff, you can save those different profiles. And for when you actually do need to print it, you don't just want to just send it to Laserfiche, but you actually want a printed hard copy. Well, Laserfiche, you know, it's got you covered. It can print it and send it to Laserfiche at the same time. All you need to do is just click into printer redirecting, and then select your favorite printer, and it does both at the same time. So by the time it's finished printed out and it's on your printer, it's already stored in Laserfiche, which makes your life nice and easy. Another piece to talk about is also the metadata. This is actually the view when you're in a document that will come up when you use a snapshot. Is that this little dialog box will come up, and you can choose to name the document, put the folder in, if the volume, if you want to get that specific, as well as the template that you want to use. And if there's a field required in the template, it's going to be required on the document as you're snapshotting it in. And this is also where you can specify the folder. So if you have a specific folder that you always want it to go to, you can do that in here as well. Other things you can do, you can add tags. These are all informational tags on the left, but if you have any security tags you may want to do, you can do those as well. Another nice thing you can do is you can choose how this goes in. Is this a new document every time, or is it just replacing an existing one? Do you want just to print this single page addendum, which has already been signed, into an existing document? Do you want to add in this last page, or do you want to replace an existing page? For example, lots of flexibility, lots of different things that you can do with the Laserfiche snapshotting feature. What you can also do is that there's two ways to get the text out of your snapshotted documents. If there's text from the print job itself, it can just grab the text and makes it nice and easy and you're done. If you want to do an OCR in the document, so if you're printing like a document that has pictures that have text in them, what it can do is you can have it do an OCR, and then now those pictures that were inside your document will be text searchable if there's any text on them. That makes it nice and easy. You can also choose your OCR engine, and if it's in a different language, you can also do that as well. Some of the other features when you're using the OCR, you can apply any of your image enhancements, such as deskew, despeckle. If you want to remove lines so that it OCRs a little bit better, you can do that. If a page maybe needs to rotate a little bit, you can also do that as well. Another nice feature is that you can use and get into the snapshot through your Windows authentication if you'd like, or if you have like a device, you can have that device have a device license, and you can use that license rather than having it as a named user. And you can also select your different settings for different types of print jobs here. You can also set your default document handling, so you don't have to set, create a document every time or insert new pages every time. So if you've got a particular thing that you do, a particular type of file that you always are bringing in, you could just create a new document, or if it's always it's always going to be the last page, you could always have it as the last page, and it could always do the default scanning and text grabbing, whether it be from the print job or from the OCR engine. Another nice feature is that with tokens, again, you can set your document naming locations as well as the connection profiles to your repository. So if you've already got default template fields in there, nice and easy, you don't have to do a lot of the data entry that you used to have to do if it's already a static thing. If the client files are always going to be at least this type of file, for example, then you make it easy. Or if there's a date that's always going to be on there, which is the date that you're snapshotting it in, you can have that be the default value there. Any questions about the snapshotting? Yes?
If you have an old document that someone scanned in that doesn't have the greatest resolution, I guess, and it's got a lot of dots and looks like garbage on it, can you resave it with Snapshot and use those things you're showing us to take out the lines and stuff?
Yes, for those of you on the webinar, the question was if I have an old document which is scanned in, it has like lots of dots and other stuff on there, can I use Snapshot? And the answer is yes. You can also use scanning through universal capture. So universal capture is when you're selecting your scanner, you can just select that instead of an actual physical scanner, and you can go through and use the image enhancements through your regular scanning features as well. So you don't necessarily have to use Snapshot, though you can. In that particular situation, I may recommend that you use universal capture so that you can apply all the specific image enhancements, because there's more on there than there are necessarily on Snapshot. Mm-hmm.
Okay, about PhotoDocs, that's another good option too.
Yes, and we will get to PhotoDocs as well. Any other questions before I move on? Yes.
I saw that the OCR engine uses on-page. Is that the standard for Laserfiche, or is there other ones that do a better job? Because sometimes when we scan in and it does the OCR, it'll sometimes say some pages, and you have to re-OCR it to have all the pages OCR. Is there a different OCR engine you can use?
I don't think that in particular there's a different OCR engine that you can use, but there are definitely image enhancements, especially if you already have a physical copy of the image. You can either use universal capture or PhotoDocs or Snapshot to get it in, and then apply some different things on there, and then that'll make the OCR go a little bit better, because typically when you add some of the image enhancements on there, it'll make the OCR process go a little bit easier. And there's also the temporary ones that you can add on there for OCR, so that you don't have to OCR it multiple times, is that it's cleaning up the text automatically and temporarily just for the purposes of OCR. It makes it go a little bit better. You don't have to do it multiple times, if that makes sense. Yes?
So I'm looking at about 10,000 files, trying to OCR all of them, try to fix them up, dump them in Laserfiche. Are you going to be able to talk about cloud computing components of scanning, or how you get the pages generated in the back end on the server? Is there anything like that you guys are covering?
Yes, that'll actually be in the next section, about timing your OCR. So.
Just want to mention about that OCR engine too, because again, just keep referring back and make everybody feel older. We've got a lot of users that have been using Laserfiche for a long time, so you might remember we set Expert-Vision as the standard OCR engine. I don't know if you remember that. That was a good version of OCR. But Laserfiche's standard right now is OmniPage, and we currently cannot, without some sort of very, very, very special version of Laserfiche from the manufacturer, you cannot use any other OCR engine. It is OmniPage. But if you have noticed, if you have any type of multilingual documents, Laserfiche supports like 30 or 40 different languages. So we were just recently in Hawaii in a user group, and we looked it up, and we know that Hawaiian is a language that we recognize in the OCR. Anyway, so just to make fun of part, that's OmniPage is the standard OCR.
Any other questions, or we're going to move on to next talking about timing your OCR. So OCR obviously stands for Optical Character Recognition. And then we also have another concept called the DCC, Distributed Computing Cluster. So the architecture a little bit of Laserfiche is that there's a server, and then you have your documents separately. And the OCR goes to the server, and it has to pull that information from the documents, and then it pretty much is one of the most process-intensive things that you can do on your server. And it can really slow down your processes, especially if you have like columns that are particularly like generated or things like that, or you have a lot of users in. OCR can definitely slow your system down a little bit while it's going through those documents. And here's a real-life example, is that as you're scanning in, with OCR, it takes about 23 pages per minute, or without the OCR, it's 40 pages per minute. So what does this mean? In this example, a scanner who scans about 8,000 pages per day, 40,000 per week, or 160 pages per month, that's 116 hours. That's just as it's scanning the document and then OCRing it. Whereas if you don't OCR at the time of capture, it's almost half the time. It's 67 hours. So there's a few things that you could do here. You can choose to have the system OCR particular times, you know, Friday at 6 p.m. after everyone's gone home, or daily after everyone's gone home, or things like that. If you don't want to choose a particular time, or you just want to scan a batch of documents and do it very quickly, another way to do it, which is nice and easy, is to just run a search. And run a search for anything that has pages and any documents that haven't been OCR'd. And then make it nice and easy. Anything that you just scanned in, which scanned in much faster because it wasn't doing the OCR at the time of capture, you can now run the OCR immediately and wait a few minutes and then it's ready and done for you, rather than having to sit there at the scanner and wait for it to go through each page, each page, each page. So does that answer your question?
Are you going to cover some of the workflow components, like having it been sent to cluster servers and OCR?
I'm not going to cover particularly using like workflow to send it to a particular server. Those are a little bit more advanced than your average, but that's certainly something you can do. Yeah. Another nice feature is that with quick fields you can do batch corrections. So if you have different types of pages, such as legal versus 8.5 by 11, the batch corrections can be done by quick fields itself. Any other questions regarding OCR, timing it, and impact on resources? Right, and next what we're going to talk about are some of your scanner tools. So some of your built-in scanner tools are auto-rotate, delete blank pages, staple detection. If there's any colors such as drop red, you can automatically do that. Another really good one is the rapid recovery feature. So if you're scanning in a bunch of documents and then as the scanner gets skewed, which invariably happens, especially when they're important and you need them right away, and all of your pages start getting skewed and there's just nothing on them after a certain point, or they're half pages and it's just kind of folding all of your stuff. In the event of a misfeed like that, what you can do is you can use the rapid recovery system to seamlessly continue scanning right where you left off. And it's only going to send the completed images to your PC. So you don't have blank pages, if there's separators there, it can automatically delete them and make your life a little bit easier and make things go through a little bit faster so that you don't have to sit there, rescan the whole thing. Any other questions on the scanner tools?
Question over there.
Yes.
We inherited a number of scan documents where somebody was not paying attention and scanned them backwards. Are there any features on the latest version that will allow you to work the page backwards? Because it was like onion scan, and so you can see the text through it, but it's all backwards.
There is some features similar to that in the scanning feature itself, and there are image enhancements in there. In regards to flipping an image, I want to say it's on there. I've never had to do that one specifically, but Patrick may.
I think it might be both. Yeah. You got black and white, you can do the invert black and white, which wouldn't be necessarily there, but there might be a flip option. I'll take that, but we're going to look for the docs. That'll be going to come back to we can determine if I can get a solution.
Yeah. Great. Then, any other questions before I move on? So next we're going to talk about PhotoDocs. And what is PhotoDocs? So PhotoDocs allows you to convert photographs into Laserfiche documents. You can capture images from your camera or your cell phone. And a nice thing to note is that PhotoDocs is included in the Laserfiche mobile app for iPhone, iPad, and Android. So it's automatically already in there for you. And some of the things you could do with it, you can perform a variety of different enhancements. You can OCR image text, crop, straighten, rotate. Like Patrick just said, you can also convert from black and white, such as if you have a bunch of black background and white text, you can invert it in PhotoDocs and then have it OCR that text. And also adjust the brightness and contrast. Where can you find PhotoDocs? Right on the bottom here of the image of the slide is just an image of your Laserfiche client. And then right along the top, right next to scanning, is the little camera. And that's PhotoDocs, and that's where you can find it. So what are some common use cases? So my Fred Meyer receipt is a good common use case. I took a picture of that with my phone, and I was able to get it cropped and OCR'd, and it looks nice and clean, and it's in Laserfiche like that. Some other common use cases are business cards, books. Everyone knows how difficult it is to scan in a page of a book. It's bound, and it's always got to be just slightly off just because of the binder in the book. But receipts, so if you're on the fly and you just want to take a picture of the receipt, that's another good example. And do you like to take just a lot of pictures in general? What you can do is you can create a processing profile for your most frequently used enhancements. So you can also, on top of that, you can automate certain parts of the process so that it only does certain parts, and then before it goes into Laserfiche itself, you could review it, or alternatively, it could go do all of your image enhancements and already dump it into Laserfiche and then leave it for somebody to go take a look at it. And then if it needs to be further enhanced, you can go in and look at it from there. Any questions about PhotoDocs? All right. Lastly,
let's go back to PhotoDocs. I want to bring up one other thing that everybody talks to us about that is a really good use case for PhotoDocs. If you scan in those documents, and I think somebody up here mentioned a whole bunch of color documents got scanned in. Anybody have that where it was, someone had the color setting on their scanner and they got, okay, I've seen a lot of nodding heads. Scanning got scanned in on color, and maybe your department head or the IT person, and you just found out maybe a couple of years later that that color setting got set, and now there's 1,000 color scans or 10,000 color scans in there. That happens a lot. Again, because that's just a user setting, right? So what you can do is you can use PhotoDocs to reprocess those. That's a common situation throughout the user community. So instead of having to run it through quick fields, which a lot of people have, and you can run it through quick fields and then essentially you downsample it, turn it into grayscale or black and white. PhotoDocs is really a great use of that. So what you would do is just click on that camera feature that, that Dan was just showing. So you click on that, and then you select the documents that you want specifically for PhotoDocs to process, and then inside the console, inside PhotoDocs, the whole toolbar will let you choose what you want to have done with it, whether it's black and white to white and black to, it's probably hard on the eyes in the room here to be able to actually see this, but let's see this one. Down there on the bottom there, you'll see in the toolbar you can automatically rotate it, you can crop it, you can convert color, again, grayscale, black and white. You can adjust brightness because a lot of times it's scanned in where it's not bright enough, or maybe it's too bright and you want to darken it up a little bit. Those are all post-scanning operations that you can run. And OCR is also in there, so you could choose the OCR language if you wanted to re-OCR, though you don't need to run PhotoDocs to do that. Lastly, kind of talking about the photos, because the name PhotoDoc, right, it implies it's for photos. It's sort of a misnomer, honestly, because PhotoDocs is used mostly for documents with clients we talk about this with. But it does have that photo function where you plug in your camera phone directly right into the PC that has Laserfiche installed on it, and then what's going to happen is when it sees that phone, if you have PhotoDocs installed there, which gets installed with the basic client, it's going to pop open with a request. Do you want to pull documents off of here for PhotoDocs? So then that'll actually allow your users who might be out in the field taking pictures of signs or maybe repair locations and they want to take a picture of it, or you might have users that are taking pictures of documents, because it happens quite a bit. That can get pulled right into PhotoDocs, and from there you can pull in additional metadata from the phone and the image,
And then you can process and index each one of those images separately, just like you would be in scanning, same way, but PhotoDocs allows you to do that and apply template data. So all that information is in the help file as well. So if you hit the F9 key when you're in PhotoDocs, it'll walk you through all the options. And we've done quite a few different sessions as well where we'll go more in depth just on PhotoDocs. But in order to save time today, we're going to just go over it briefly, but we'll be able to talk about it more if anybody has any questions about PhotoDocs.
Yes.
I have one last point about PhotoDocs. I think the original intent of PhotoDocs was pictures of books. So if it's something you can't scan, you want to take the pictures, and PhotoDocs would do the processing to get the pages flat for you. So I think that was the original use case, and I see that in use now and again. So if you've got those books that you don't want to cut off instead of running through a scanner, you don't want to individually scan them, that's the way to do it.
Yes.
The photo is scanned, and when you look at it, it's totally black. Will it reverse that so you can actually see the picture?
Yes, like if there's text that where the background is black or,
No, it's
you know.
just a photo, no text.
That's a good question. That one I'll have to look into a little bit more. Any other questions? Yes.
So on PhotoDocs, can you do a bunch of items in mass? Or is this each individual that you're talking about?
You can do it in mass. You can also create a profile so that it does it for you in mass, and then when you go in and look at it, if you need to do more stuff, you can do it at that time. Otherwise, you can just have like the profile and run it for you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so there is an ability
To set like default profiles.
deploying images, exact same function, each of them. PhotoDocs would be able to do that.
Yeah.
You'd be able to go through each document and do that without me having to click anything. You would just, I've got a list, you do this for all of these documents.
Yeah, in that situation, I would just choose like only a few, and then I would kind of look through the rest, because if you add a lot of broad image processing to everything, that can, you know, it's not going to work for every image at that same level. So if it's always the same, you can add more different processing to it, but do like a bare minimum, clean it up, rotate it, that kind of different stuff, and then just have your operator go in and take a look, and if you need to add more stuff to it, you definitely can do that.
We had an interesting use case that kind of dovetails with that comment, where an organization had a few scanners who would scan often in color, and like we mentioned earlier, those can be like 60 times larger than monochrome, so you want to get rid of those, and there isn't an easy way to kind of search for color images because it's not a piece of metadata. So what people were doing as they were going through the repositories, they were adding tags to those individual photos, and then workflow was able to, behind the scenes at the end of the day, grab all of those with the tags and reprocess them through PhotoDocs. So you can definitely set up some rules in place to act on that trigger of the tag to utilize PhotoDocs for that batch, and I think that kind of would go towards what you were implying.
Any other questions? Last thing I want to talk about is the import agent, which is a service which runs in the back end, and it monitors particular file locations or folders, for example, and pulls your images, documents, whatever you would like into Laserfiche. And it's nice because you can set your custom profiles where if there's a specific type of file that you want to pull in, it can automatically pull it in, and then based on that profile, it can assign your specific metadata to that, or add your security tags and OCR it automatically, and as well as dynamically name it. You can also have it do options like when it's done with the file, just delete it, and then when it's having a problem, dump it into another folder so that your files just don't end up in the middle of kind of no man's land. Well, did it get into Laserfiche or did it not? Where is it? Oh, it's in the error folder. That's where it went. And it also gives you flexibility to let you tell it when it runs. So this is, again, another process-intensive, heavy thing that's running on your network. If you wanted to run twice a day, in the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, you can have it do that. And another nice thing as well is that it allows you to also auto bring in things from some of your peripheral devices, such as your fax server, or if your scanner always scans to a particular location, you could do that, or if there's specific folders on your network drive where you just want to do them dynamically, you could just drop it into, this is this folder, and then when a file gets pulled in from this folder, it's going to add this specific metadata and then make it nice and easy for you to find and drop it into your file location. Any questions on the import agent specifically? So this brings us to the end of advanced scanning strategies. Oh, I think this is the next presentation. So any questions on advanced scanning strategies? Yeah.
Is there a way, so I've got thousands of documents that people just dropped in there, they didn't generate the pages, they didn't do the OCR. Is there a way that I can go back through and queue up all of that to get done? So,
yeah.
like if you generate the pages, I'd like to do the OCR. That kind of functionality, even though we have it from a scanner, the copier ends up sending it to a network location, you can get people able to pull it. But then how do I get to do all that at that?
I think you have a comment about that process.
Something similar where I have a workflow that runs that will actually do the search that says, does it have more than 0 pages and does it have no text? Dumps it into a token, and then that token gets passed to, there's actually an action where it sends it to the distributing client scheduler. You can install that on, I install it on every workstation in our environment, and then the entire infrastructure essentially will run this over a page at a time on each one, and it can take that whole search list and schedule it out to everyone, and overnight you can do tens of thousands of pages. And it's,
so that can be OCR. Is there an ability to generate the pages?
It generates, I think, generates pages in OCR. That process does it as well.
Is that more or less what you're thinking of? Okay. Any other questions? Were there any questions from the webinar itself?
I've got some answers. I got a couple of answers for everybody. While we've been talking, I pinged our support team and found out a couple of answers for us. So if you don't know how to ping our support team, just email them at support@citiesdigital.com. Send a question in, and they'll get right back to you. Of course, you always have remote connect, right, on our website, so they can see your screen and help you through any troubleshooting. But anyway, to answer a couple of questions, first one was about that inverting with PhotoDocs. I checked, and we don't have the ability to actually invert, meaning flip the, actually flip the image over, essentially, so that the text were backwards is now forward. So that feature doesn't exist. It is kind of a unique situation, but I have seen that happen before. So I know exactly how that could happen with the onion skin where it bleeds through. So we're going to work together and find a solution on that. Now, regarding the scanning settings for hotkeys, which was another question, we just had to check on that because it's a bit of an obscure question, so we haven't had to deal with that before, but it is certainly a necessary feature. We checked on that. We can't find a single location in the user profile where the scan settings are stored. So we think it's local to the PC because scanning gets installed local to the PC as well. So we think it's in the scanning configuration, maybe an XML file in the scanning directory, but it does not transfer with the user profile, those hotkeys. So there's the answer on that one. Had to dig deep into our support team to find that answer for us, but we got it.